African Union Communications Early Warning and Intelligence, commonly known as AUC3I, is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to AU citizens, AU leadership, and AU armed forces. I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. I am responsible for leading infantry soldiers at all levels of command in combined armed forces during missions on the ground. This is today's briefing. On the progress of the special military operation as of November 13, 2025. The armed forces of the Russian Federation continue the special military operation. Units of the North Group of troops, as a result of decisive actions, liberated the settlement of Synelnykove in the Kharkiv region, defeated the formations of the Jaeger and two mechanized brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine in the areas of the settlements of Khotin, Moritsia, and Volfino in the Sumy region. In the Kharkiv direction, units of the Motorized Infantry Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and the Border Detachment of the Ukrainian Border Service were defeated in the areas of the settlements of Volchansk and Proletarka in the Kharkiv region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost more than 120 servicemen, 3 tanks, 2 infantry fighting vehicles, 7 vehicles, 2 artillery guns, a radar station, and 8 supply depots. Units of the West Group of troops improved their position on the front line. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of 2 mechanized brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a territorial defense brigade, and a National Guard brigade in the areas of Kirilivka, Petropavlivka in the Kharkiv region, Danylivka, and Sviatohorsk in the Donetsk People's Republic. Assault detachments of the 6th Army continue to destroy encircled formations of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the area of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region. During the day, 3 counterattacks were repelled by units of the 151st Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine near Monokhanivka in the Kharkiv region, and the 1st and 15th National Guard Brigades near Osanov and Nechveladivka in the Kharkiv region, aimed at breaking the encirclement and reaching the Osko River to restore destroyed crossings. As a result of fire strikes, up to 50 Ukrainian servicemen and an infantry fighting vehicle were destroyed. Units of the South Group of troops occupied more advantageous lines and positions. They inflicted damage on formations of 2 motorized infantry brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and a National Guard brigade in the areas of Kramatorsk, Seversk, and Kostantinivka in the Donetsk People's Republic. The enemy lost up to 190 servicemen, 3 armored combat vehicles, 2 field artillery guns, 21 vehicles, an electronic warfare station, and 2 supply depots. Units of the Center Group of troops improved their tactical position. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of Jaeger, Air Mobile, 2 airborne assault, 4 mechanized brigades, 2 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a National Guard brigade, and a Marine brigade in the areas of Rosie Luxembourg, Volyn, Rodinsk, Shevchenko, and Belitsk in the Donetsk People's Republic. In the settlement of Krasnoarmysk in the Donetsk People's Republic, assault groups of the 2nd Army are conducting active offensive operations in the western part of the city, the northwestern and eastern quarters of the Central District, as well as in the territory of the Western Industrial Zone. The clearing of the settlement of Ro in the Donetsk People's Republic from Ukrainian militants continues. 10 attacks were repelled by the 425th Assault Regiment Skala of the Armed Forces of Ukraine from the area of the settlement of Hryshin in the Donetsk People's Republic. In the settlement of Dmitrov in the Donetsk People's Republic, units of the 5th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the 51st Army continue the offensive in the Vostochny microdistrict, the southern part of the settlement, and towards the Zapadny microdistrict. Over the day, more than 229 Ukrainian servicemen, 11 units of weapons and military equipment, including 4 armored combat vehicles, 5 vehicles, and 2 field artillery guns, were destroyed in the Krasnoarmysk direction. In total, in the area of responsibility of the Center Group of troops, enemy losses amounted to up to 510 servicemen, 2 Western-made armored personnel carriers, 3 armored combat vehicles, 2 field artillery guns, and 6 vehicles. Units of the East Group of troops continued the offensive deep into the enemy's defense and as a result of active actions liberated the settlement of Danylivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Defeated formations of mechanized, assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade in the areas of Synelnykove in the Dnipropetrovsk region and Ravnopilia in the Zaporizhzhia region. The Armed Forces of Ukraine lost up to 220 servicemen, 2 armored combat vehicles, and 10 vehicles. Units of the Dnipro group of troops improved their tactical position. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of a mechanized brigade and a coastal defense brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the areas of Novoandriivka, Mykolaiv, and Molotokmachka in the Zaporizhzhia region. Up to 70 servicemen, 13 vehicles, 4 electronic warfare stations, and a supply depot were destroyed. Operational tactical aviation, strike unmanned aerial vehicles, missile troops, and artillery of the Russian armed forces groupings inflicted damage on fuel, energy, and transport infrastructure facilities used by the armed forces of Ukraine, temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries in 142 areas. Up to 19 unmanned boats and 3 tugboats were destroyed. Air defense systems shot down a guided aviation bomb, a long-range guided missile Neptune, and 157 airplane-type unmanned aerial vehicles by the forces and means of the Black Sea Fleet. 4 unmanned boats of the Armed Forces of Ukraine were destroyed. In total, since the beginning of the special military operation, destroyed 668 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 96,284 unmanned aerial vehicles, 636 surface-to-air missile systems, 26,000 tanks and other armored combat vehicles, 1,611 multiple launch rocket systems, 31,274 field artillery guns and mortars, 46,560 units of special military automotive equipment. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.